God, I love that song. It gets me in the mood to talk to you guys. What's going on, everybody? It's been a few minutes since the last time I did something live. It's so exciting. It's good to see you guys. I'm going to take my time in the beginning here, just let folks find the stream and, get their seats, get some cookies and some juice in the back. You can see my trusty podcasting buddy is here with me, Dougie. He's licking his paws as usual. Doing his part is what he's doing. Yeah. Let's get some drinks and get ready for a fun night of festivities. Got some good stuff planned tonight. Gosh, it's been so long since I've done anything live. We just haven't. It's been a whole thing, you know. I might do a video at some point or some kind of explainer telling you guys what's been going on the family side of things, but we've had some good positive movement and progress in that front, so hopefully that will help things kind of return to a little bit more of a normal cadence in terms of like releases and live shows and stuff like that. But when things are difficult at home, the first thing to go is live stuff. It's one of the it's a hard thing to pretend to be in a good mood when you're not in a good mood. I'm not an actor, so sometimes this stuff, it kind of leaks into what you do. I'd rather just not do it instead of trying to fight it. So anywho, things are actually looking up, and Nicole's feeling a lot better, and that's all good. Everything is getting better. So all that said, what are we here for today? Today is a preview party. It's a night where we take an opportunity to preview an upcoming course. So this Friday, we've got a Norse. It's got nothing to do with the Norse. It's a new course called Demystifying Built-Ins. And the pre-order is up now, so you can go to twwguild.com and you could take advantage of the pre-order pricing. We'll go into a little bit more on that in a bit. But the video releases in full. The whole course releases. I said the video. What I really meant was the videos. It is a huge course. This was something that over the course of the summer, a good portion of the summer and into the fall, I was working on this desk for Nicole. And it was just a monumental build for me, and I was also busy with home stuff, so I didn't have as much opportunity to get the time that I needed. So it took place over the course of like 4 months, and the videos show that because it's just an incredible level of detail. So this course has 16 video lessons for a total of 7 hours and 40 minutes of video instruction. And that's after me going through and really taking the axe to a lot of things that I felt it was just a little too much. And we do edit our videos, so I had to pull back on some of that stuff. But my gosh, 7 hours and 37 minutes and 33 seconds. So it's a beast. It's substantial. Just a quick note, technical note here. Any questions that come in the chat, I am totally happy to answer them. I'll probably get through this beginning stuff first. We'll watch the preview, and then I can answer in the chat as well as after the video is done. I usually take an opportunity to answer some questions. So yeah, let's get right to it. What we're here to do is to get a preview of this build, because guild courses are not necessarily, they're not free. And I want you guys to know what you're getting into when you get a guild course, what's involved, all the benefits to becoming a guild member, because there's quite a few. There's some guild members in the chat room who will probably be more than happy to tell you some of the cool features of becoming a guild member. And this particular build is just a great place to start if you're looking to get into built-ins and maybe you've been intimidated by them. I know I was very intimidated by them. I still am to a degree, because there's challenges that I've yet to confront, but I've learned enough in, I've probably done about a half dozen of them at this point. I've learned enough that I'm like, you know what? I know where I was hung up. I want to talk to other woodworkers about this who maybe are coming from a furniture making background and just need a couple little tips and a couple things to be unlocked so they can understand how to do this too, because it's just not that difficult when you understand some of those tricks. So I thought it would be fun to share that with you guys. So here's the deal. We're going to watch this video. Before we do, though, I think I should give you... Well, let me show you the promo, just so you can see what we're actually talking about before you see a full episode from the series.
Are you intimidated by built-ins? I was too. In fact, the first time that I tried to make a built-in, I just couldn't wrap my head around how we build something perfect in the shop and then install it into a space in a home that's anything but perfect. So after doing more than a few of these myself, I'm ready to share my techniques in a new course called Demystifying Built-Ins. Now let's be honest, even if you're a decent woodworker, built-ins require a whole different skill set. And I'm going to show you how to do it using this beautiful walnut desk that I made for my wife. We'll start by evaluating the existing space, making a template for the desktop, and removing the old desk so that we can take all of the appropriate measurements. I'll then show you how to take that information and put it into SketchUp where we can begin to design the desk while working within our real-world restrictions. Back in the shop, we'll build all the components using dowels as our primary joinery. And finally, we'll walk through installation, including how to get tight professional scribes that make the desk look seamless against walls that are crooked as a dog's hind leg. And while I don't expect anyone to actually build this exact desk, my goal here is to give you a repeatable process that you can use for any built-in in your home. This course launches on March 20th, and if you get your pre-order in now, you can not only get the special pre-order price, you'll also be able to choose between two awesome bonuses. Either a classic General Tools scribe, which you can use to scribe your own built-in projects, or a pack of our double-sided backside sandpaper, which you can use to smooth your surfaces before finishing. If you've ever looked at a space in your home and thought, I wish I could build something custom for that, well, this course is a great starting point. I'll see you in the guild.
All right, so one other thing, I mentioned the General Tools scribe and our little sandpaper pack. You're going to get a little sticker in there too, because why not? The other thing is there is a third option. So these are for US only. We're not shipping outside the US because it's super expensive. These physical options are for US members only. There's a third option available to anybody, including international, and that's 50% off another guild course. So you pre-order this one, you get that coupon code. We'll probably mail them out like Friday, something like that. We'll send you an email, and then you can use it on any other course in the guild, which is a pretty darn good deal, 50% off. So you have one of three options, really nice bonuses, and this course is already on sale because it's on pre-order. So for those who are a little bit late, we're just going to watch an episode, full episode. It's a 37-minute long introduction episode. This is video one. A lot of times when we do this, I will jump into the meat of the course and show you something where you don't quite have all the context, but you get to see how the course goes. This one, I thought the first one was probably the best one to introduce to you guys and show you what we're about to do and then what kind of detail you could expect. And this one's a little bit weird because a lot of it's filmed in my basement. It was a little tricky to film down there. I don't normally do that sort of thing, but you know, it turned out okay. I think you're going to enjoy it. Did I miss anything before we go? Yeah, a quick mention after we're done here, once we close out this little party, we have another thing called a watch party that we do with guild members. Every Wednesday, we pick a couple of episodes of just like Greg usually finds some really good stuff. Nicole finds good stuff, just woodworking videos. And we watch them together using a website called SyncTube. And we chat about it. And it's super cool. We'll watch like new Yankee episodes. Sometimes we watch a guild video. Sometimes we watch other makers on YouTube or documentaries. Super, super fun. We do it every Wednesday. It's for members only. But tonight, we're opening up to the public. So this is not something that, you know, it's not even on YouTube. It utilizes YouTube. But the chat room itself is on a site called SyncTube. So I think Greg or Nicole will put the link in the chat if you guys are interested in hanging out with us after this is done. So we got a fun night planned for you guys. I hope you didn't have anything planned, because now you do. All right. So this video one is called Measurements and Planning, 37 minutes long. Hopefully the audio and everything will stay in sync. If it doesn't, I can't control that. But it's about 37 minutes. That's your time investment. And I will see you guys on the other end. Hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Well, welcome everybody to my basement. We have a really challenging project here today. Behind me is a built-in desk, kind of built into an alcove. My office is upstairs, but this has always been the place where Nicole thought she'd be able to set up her computer and a space that's kind of away from the shop where she can get some work done. The problem is it's great in theory, but the actual quality of the desk is real problematic. Things just don't work. Stuff just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So I think we're going to replace the whole thing. Now, you guys know my history. I don't really do a lot of built-ins, though in the past few years, I've definitely dipped my toes into that arena. So I'm learning quite a bit, but it's definitely not my comfort zone. So what I'm going to try to do is build this as a fine woodworker. I might approach it very differently than a true, someone with experience in built-ins and a carpenter who sort of was trained in that type of work. I may do things a little bit differently, but hopefully we'll be able to get to the same finish line when it's all said and done. And ultimately, my goal with something like this, with a built-in, is to use as little cover trim as possible. So where we can scribe, we scribe. Where we can cut and custom fit, we custom fit, just to get the best results possible. And then, worst case scenario, if we have to, we always have the option to cover with trim later. I just don't want to, if I could avoid it. So what's wrong with this desk? Well, a bunch of things. Let me show you. The most notable issue is the drawers. They're just sort of very haphazardly installed with hardware that I've honestly, to be truthful, I've never seen hardware like this before. But there is a rail down the center with two rollers, one on each side. Now this roller is completely missing. This one is in place, but this just doesn't work really well. And I don't think the tolerances were there to make this hardware do what it's supposed to do. So the drawer just kind of wobbles in that space, and you can actually see how much smaller this drawer is than the opening, which limits the capacity of the drawer. You really can't do that much with it if you're eating up an inch on each side. So getting this guy back in place, I mean, once it's in there, it's kind of okay, but clearly it's a bit of a wreck. Now let's open this door up and we'll get Nicole's files out of here. So you can see on the inside of the door, it is a, kind of a variation of a frame and panel, but not exactly the best construction, but something like this almost becomes a facade. And what you'll find that's I think is really interesting is the way it was constructed in the first place. Take a look at the inside here. It's basically 2x4s anchored to the wall, and then a face frame that's been tacked to that. And then at the back there, you can see we've got more 2x4 construction, and it just gets skinned. I mean, this is obviously not the way that I would build something, but I do applaud the ingenuity and being able to do an on-site build like this. I think it's actually pretty darn cool. And look at how little material you wind up using. Just a bunch of fairly inexpensive 2x4s. And then you skin the outside with the stuff you can actually see. And for this center drawer, this one actually works. It does slide, but you can see we've got some issues with that hardware coming off. And basically, they just have a couple pieces of plywood here supporting the slides, and that's just screwed into the top. So it works, but at some point, this is just gonna probably fall apart. All right, so let's talk strategy. My goal as a fine woodworker and not a trim carpenter is to make sure that I can get as much of this done at the shop as possible. Now, it's a little bit tricky. In the past, when my shop was in my garage, it was fairly easy to do things like this, but now it's a 10-minute drive. So when I come here, I gotta make sure I'm coming here for a purpose and then be able to go back to the shop and get most of the work done there. Now, the shop is a controlled environment, so as long as I have my measurements correct and I'm able to build to spec, I could build something that once I get here, I know it's gonna fit, and then we use scribing techniques to make sure that it looks like it was built and perfectly fits into this space, while we had to do a little bit of work for the final install. But I have to be very strategic about what I'm going to do, and I'll convey all that stuff to you as we go. First thing we need to really do is think about, what are we building? Is this the design we want? Do we want to make changes? Well, I think we're kind of locked in some respects here. This has to be a double pedestal situation with a space in the middle like this. And that comes down to the carpet, because we actually had the carpet replaced when we moved in, and I have no desire to do anything moving that carpet around. So chances are I'm going to be building something exactly to this dimension so that we don't have to worry about carpeting at all. So we will have two pedestals. Now, what the configuration of those pedestals are or will be, don't know for sure. They could be all drawers. They could be a drawer and a door. I don't know for sure. We'll design that later, but I do know we have pedestals there. I know that Nicole wants a drawer here in the middle. There's plenty of knee room in this space, so no reason why we can't put a drawer there, but it does complicate things if we have to make sure we're flush on both sides, but we want to have a fixed drawer here in the middle. We got to make sure that we're able to do that and have it work in the shop and then be transferable to this location here. So that's going to be really interesting. And at this point,
We don't really need to do a whole lot of demo yet. I don't see a need for that. What I'm going to really focus on is getting measurements, because measurements are going to be everything for this. All right, let's begin with the pedestal depth. This is basically going to be from this front edge of the face frame all the way back to the wall. There is a piece of trim, a piece of baseboard back here. This baseboard, I believe it was cut. Yeah, it doesn't continue all the way through, so I'm basically going to measure from the drywall to the front of the face frame and write that number down. And I cannot assume that the left and the right are the same, but please, I hope they are the same, and they are not even close to the same. Good God. So after a little bit of an investigation, I figured out what they did. They just installed this poorly. It kind of comes back at an angle, and when I look at my setback to the face frame on this side, it's almost exactly 2 inches. And on this side, we're at about 2 3/8. And that's the same discrepancy I see in the depth of the left cabinet to the right cabinet. So I've got a decision to make with that. I either build them exactly to the size that they have here, and I don't have to touch the carpet, or I do it right, and I want both pedestals to be the same size. I mean, the worst case scenario here would have been if the alcove was not framed correctly, and if it was 3/8 off, then that would be a little bit trickier of an issue, because you would want the setback to look the same on both sides. In this case, they just messed up, and the setback is not the same on both sides. So I'm gonna go with the largest of those two dimensions, and then figure out what to do with the carpet later. I don't know what kind of trouble I'm in for with that, because I don't do carpet, never have, but hey, I could just search YouTube and find some information, right? How hard can it be? Famous last words. Now for the width, I'm just gonna measure across here. This little trim piece is gonna get removed. And you have to keep in mind that the face frame overhangs the actual cabinet side. And I believe we are butted up against this. And the face frame piece down at the bottom is just kind of, probably fudged in the carpet there. So the dimension that I want is the one for my cabinet, which is this inside face here. So when I take that measurement, it's a little bit over 18 inches when I'm measuring the face frame, and I think that accounts for this little overage here. So I think we can actually call that an even 18 inches. And please, please, please let this be the same. Okay, we're good, 18 it is. Now, normally we might just measure this piece in the middle to find out this distance here, but this is something that we're probably gonna figure out in the shop, because we're gonna know the total opening width. And then we know that these are a fixed dimension, right? We've already measured those, and it has to meet up to a certain point on the carpet. So with those as fixed dimensions, what's left over just depends on what we do with our face frame here. So that's something we could probably calculate later, but it certainly doesn't hurt to just get a ballpark measurement right now for the size of the carpeting. And I'll just make sure when I note this down, this is not a hard number. This is just something we have for approximation. All right, so now I'm going to get the total opening dimension here from side to side, 70 5/8. I may as well get the height while I'm here too. It looks like they have this at about 29.5. This is something we can change if we want to. Currently, we'll call it 29.5, but maybe we want to bump it up to 30. We can totally do that. We just have to make those adjustments. All right, so now let's grab the alcove depth. Hope that they're the same on both sides. About 28.25. And over here, we're at about, 28.5. Wonderful. So about a 1/4 inch discrepancy there. All right, so that's one additional wrinkle. Not too bad, but we have to put all this stuff down because we have to do some design work soon. And I need to know what the situation's gonna be. So if we know that this side is actually a 1/4 inch deeper, we already know we're going to make our pedestals the same dimension, right? So if this is a 1/4 inch deeper, and we're bringing this so that we have an even setback on both sides, that's going to result in a 1/4 inch gap at the back. Unless I think ahead and I make sure that these inside panels maybe have a little bit of extra material at the back, knowing that I'm going to bring them on site and scribe them at the back. So I'm just going to take note. This is something we have to include in the design. All right, so the last piece of information I need is what we're doing with the top. Now this can wait till later. We're not constructing the top just yet, but I figure we're here, we may as well get that info. Now you could just take measurements, get pretty close, and do what they did and put a little bit of a quarter round or something to trim it out. But I really would like to shoot for something that is just custom fit, and we just kind of paint anything we scratch on the way in and call it done. So in order to do that, I need a template. Now there may be better ways to do this. I'm going to show you a way that works for me and totally makes sense to me. Hopefully it would work for you as well. I've used it before on installing some butcher block countertops between two walls and getting a nice even scribe on both sides. Right, so the first thing I need to do is actually remove this trim because I'm going to be putting material up here and scribing it to fit. And the only way I can do that is if this trim is out of here. All right, so we can see there's a pretty good gap here, and let me actually take a straight edge and show you what I'm seeing. So we've got ourselves a nice little gap here in the middle with contact at the back and the front. So this is one of the reasons why when we build the pedestal, we're going to be slightly inside of this, so we don't have to worry about the actual cabinet itself making contact with any of this. We're only going to be worried about the facade at the front of the face frame making contact here. But when it comes to our desktop, we do have to be concerned about that, and I would want that shape translated into my top material so that we can avoid the trim. So how are we gonna do it? So what I'm gonna do is take 5 pieces of cheap plywood. Now you can use anything inexpensive for this because it's kind of sacrificial. Hardboard would work. You technically could use something like cardboard, but I do plan to use this as a routing template later. So cardboard would not be the best choice, but if you're just gonna transfer the shape to something, cardboard would work. So I've got some of these cut to a pretty wide piece here, and the idea is I'm gonna lay them right on top of the existing tabletop. If you don't have something already in place, let's just say it's an empty nook, you probably wanna build up some boxes or get some stands or something to the height of the tabletop so you're actually making a template of the exact space you're gonna be having your top. These are cut a little bit longer than the depth of this opening because we're gonna do a little bit of trimming on them, and then later we can cut the front. So you want them a little bit excessively long. So I'm gonna put them down, start with the middle, and these 3 big ones are gonna cover the bulk of this space. I've got 2 smaller ones which we'll use for the ends. All right, so I'm gonna push the outside ones pretty far over, maybe just an inch or so from the side wall. You wanna minimize how much is left because we want these 3 to primarily dictate the shape of the back wall. We're not so worried about the sides. That's what the other 2 are for. I just want to make sure I have enough overlap that these pieces have a surface. Later, we actually are going to glue these together. And if I don't have enough overlap there, this thing becomes a little bit fragile. So maybe I'll come in just a little bit more. There we go. I think that looks good. Now, of course, drywall is never going to be flat, so you decide how picky you want to be. This actually doesn't look too bad. There's a couple gaps here and there, but I think we can do better than what we're presented with here. We may as well. We got all the material. So let me number these, because I want to keep these in order. I will be drawing on them and then taking them back to the shop to shape them and then bringing them back. So we want to make sure they go in order. This is panel number 2. Remember, there's 1 on the end. 3, 4, and then of course 5 will be over here. So once I have these in position, I'm locking them down. So I'm going to draw a line here where those 2 panels meet. I'm going to draw one here. This just helps me find my position again later on. I'm even going to put a mark on the wall where these panels go so I don't forget what the position is later. And even on the ends. Okay, it's looking good. And then now we'll work with the scribe. So this bad boy is the AccuScribe. You could certainly use an old school compass. You don't need something fancy like this, but I really do like this. It's got a nice metal point, and you put your pencil in over there, and I'm gonna minimize the distance here. We really don't need to cut a lot away. There's just not a lot of flaw in this wall, thankfully. So I'm gonna get that guy set and we can scribe. So our first panel, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a gap there. So we kind of make contact toward the end and we make contact by the corner here. So that'll be an important factor. And then in the middle, it looks like we kind of have, I would say there's like a hump here because I see a little bit of a gap here at this end and a comparable gap at the other. The next panel, everything is nice and flush, nice and tight until you get to the end and you start to see it open up a little bit. So it's not a huge error, but I think that's enough to want to take care of it. Okay, so I'm just going to try to very consistently keep that little spike on the wall. Keep this at the same angle all the way across. Got a little bit of drywall damage over there that's gonna give me a false line, but should still be okay. So now let me bring in the first end piece, piece number 1. Now, truthfully, if I were being a little bit smarter, I would have made this narrower, because the point of this piece is not to give us a shape for the back. That's what this guy is doing. This piece is primarily focused on this wall and then maybe that last inch, which really shouldn't be all that different. We're just covering that gap here. So when you make a piece really wide like this, it's going to be influenced potentially by this portion of the back, and I'm not relying on that for the back. So I probably could have gone, you know, in the middle of this piece and had both pieces from there. But I am making contact here, and I don't see any contact there. So I actually think I'm in pretty good shape. I'm making contact at my front corner and then also at the back corner there. So that's as close to that wall as it can go. So now I'm gonna strike my line again. So I have another reference line to bring these pieces back together. And now I'm just gonna take my scribe, probably increase it because that's a pretty sizable gap over there. So I'm gonna increase the distance on my scribe to maybe closer to a 1/4 inch. Just bring it back to front. Repeat on the other side for panel number 5. All right, so now one of the few disadvantages to having a shop that's 10 minutes away is that my tools are there. So I'm gonna take these 5 pieces back to the shop, cut to our line so we can get back here and make sure everything looks perfect. So back at the shop, I'm gonna use my oscillating spindle sander to work my way back to the pencil line. I think this is the most efficient tool. It's fast and fairly easy to control. The key though is the technique. You don't want to sort of stab into the spindle. You want to make sure you're dragging across the spindle. Because this thing is round, you know, the more you push in and kind of unevenly go across the spindle, you're gonna just make this roller coaster ride of a surface. So what I like to do is just use a very light touch, and this is very thin material. It's gonna chew through it pretty quickly. But sort of just go from right to left, moving across the spindle. Speaking of right to left, that depends on what brand of spindle sander you have. Sometimes they rotate the other way. This Oliver version does rotate the way that I prefer. It mimics what you would do at the router table in a right to left motion, right to left, but you will find some models that you're gonna have to go left to right. I personally wouldn't buy those because that would drive me crazy. Anyway, nice smooth motion all the way across, work back to your pencil line, and then you have a choice to make. Either you consume the entire pencil line or you leave the pencil line. In this case, my pencil line is kind of faint. I think I'd rather leave that there so that I can make sure that as long as I see a little bit of pencil there, I know I'm pretty good. So, oscillating spindle sander is a pretty cool tool. Now, if you don't have an oscillating spindle sander, you're not out of luck. There are other things that you can do. One option would be to use a rasp. Good quality rasp will make short work of this. You can work your way back to your line. Now, I will add that if you have a lot of material to remove, it might be best to use the bandsaw or a jigsaw with a very fine tooth blade to get the excess off of there, and then jump to something like these hand tools that I'm showing you. Another hand tool option would be a spoke shave. These remove material in a hurry. It's a little less fun to use on plywood than on solid wood, but there's no reason why you can't get pretty good clean cuts. Now you might get a little bit of tear out on something like a cheap, piece of plywood like this with that thin veneer, but it should still give you a good reference edge. And of course, we can't forget hand sanding. If you've got a sanding block and a pretty good low grit sandpaper, 120, 100, something like that, you could work your way back to the line. It's gonna take more time, it's gonna make more mess, but if that's what you have, then you gotta do what you gotta do. All right, so let's get these guys up here and see how we did. This is where those pencil marks on the wall are gonna come in handy, letting us know pretty much where we need to put these guys. There, and then this one goes here. I'm gonna push forward and just kind of look for rocking or look for any major gaps. So on the left here, this looks pretty clean. I don't really see anything I need to make an adjustment for there. Same thing on the right side. I really don't see any problems there, but in the middle, this isn't terrible, but I think I need to remove just a little bit more from the middle of that piece because it's just, I could still kind of make it rock, and I could see that if I push it one way or the other, I get a gap on the end. So I will just clean that up a little bit. So I did actually bring my little baby block plane just in case I needed to do some work like this. And what I'm gonna do is just mark the part where I see some contact being made. Mark it with a pencil. Actually got a little bit over here too. I'm not gonna get too crazy with this. I don't need to remove a lot, but I kind of just mark those areas where I need to remove a little bit of material. And a little baby block plane like this is perfect for this because you can kind of put it at an angle and just kind of spot hit the spaces as opposed to a bigger block plane that might have a little bit of trouble removing a small area like this. Let's see how that did. All right, that's looking nice and tight. All right, so now let's take panel number 1 and see how we did on the end. Oh yeah. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's gonna be so cool if we can get the actual thing to fit in there later. But right now, the template is pretty dead on. Let's check the last one, number 5. A bit of an issue there, so I got a pretty substantial gap here, but I don't think my line is way off. I think the way that this butts out at the front corner, I just didn't remove enough material at the front there. So some of that will be cut away later, but let's plane it down so we can get this guy to fit. All right, and that's probably about as good as I'm gonna get. All right, so next order of business is to glue these together. Now you can use hot glue. You could, I guess if you have tiny little staples, you might be able to staple them together. But I'm gonna use a bit of CA glue for a quick bond, and then a little bit of my Type Bond speed set for more permanent bond, because these are sacrificial. You might do this in such a way to recover this material later if you really want to, but I'm not too worried about that. I just want to make sure that this thing doesn't move once I have everything in position. So let me get these guys out of here for now, and we'll focus on the inner 3. Get each one lined up with no gap at the back. And I'll just put some CA glue. And my Type Bond. Drop this guy in place. Make sure everybody's pushing forward. And we'll just put some pressure down. Okay, we'll do the same thing for board number 1. And now board number 5. Now I've got one last reference point that I need to include on these, and that's the setback from the front. So we know that the opening is not exact, but we want the appearance of it being exact, right? So the way we're gonna do this is measuring back however far we want our top to stop. So we've got this weird surface in the front here. It's definitely not a straight line, and it sticks out too far to even work for this application. So I've got this guy set at 1/4 inch, and I'm gonna put a pencil line on the wall. Now I can transfer that pencil line to my template. Do the same thing over here. So now later on, when we're back at the shop, all we have to do is connect the dots and make a cut all the way across. That'll be a nice straight reference point with the setbacks that we need for our top. All right, so now we got to get this thing out of here. You got to be careful. These joints aren't indestructible, so if we put too much stress on this thing, we could certainly cause a problem. We can't pull it straight out because of the way that the wall bellies in. The template's just never going to come out that way. So we either have to tilt up and then angle it, or just lift it up from one of the sides and then pull it out. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do. Lift it up as evenly as possible. Just like that. All right, now we could take this to the shop and hang on to it till we actually need it. All right, so I think we pretty much have everything that we need from this space. The next thing we need to do is digital. I need to get into SketchUp and take all of these numbers and see if I can't first define the space and then define the cabinets and the features that will live within that space. All right, here we are in SketchUp, and we have this dork of a hipster over here that we're gonna have to get rid of. Goodbye, guy. And now our job is to define this space. Now keep in mind, you can do all of this with a pencil and paper, but I like to use SketchUp because I find it a little bit faster, and then I can kind of figure some problems out this way that would be a lot harder for me with pencil and paper, but it's totally doable. All right, so let's define our opening. I just want a representation of that. So I know we have a width of 70 and 5/8. Punch that in. And if you remember, on the left side, we have a 1/4 inch difference in depth on the left to the right. So this is 28 1/4, and on the right side, 28 1/2. Now I'm going to draw a line connecting those two back points. It may look like a rectangle, but technically it is slightly off from a rectangle, with this side being a little bit longer than the left side. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And, you know, for me, I like to see the actual physical restrictions. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle on this side, just straight up like this. We'll put it about 8 feet up, and that kind of represents that internal wall. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Now, I do want to mention that I'm not here to teach SketchUp today. I'm only here to show you some quick drawing tools that we're going to use. Again, pencil and paper would do just fine. But if you do want to learn more about using SketchUp and how all these tools work, we do have a couple of courses for that I think are perfect for giving you a good introduction. But for now, just kind of keep in mind what's happening with the numbers and how we're changing what fits into this space to make it just all work, right? So what's next? We need to think about the cabinets that we're going to put in place here. All right, so let's draw in one of our cabinets. And there's just a few things that I'm going to keep in mind with something like this. The cabinet, mostly, I don't really want it to touch the walls, because if I try to make it perfectly sized for this space, we may have situations where the drywall bumps out or something like that that we can't predict and we didn't measure for. So it's important that the actual case itself lives inside this opening. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to give myself just a couple of guides, and this is just something I like to do with a measuring tool here, just so I know where I'm going to be. So I'm going in about 3/4 of an inch from this inside edge. That's a little buffer room. From this front edge, I've measured that, and I know we want a 2-inch setback. But then I have a face frame that's 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is measure back 2 3/4 of an inch. Because I'm really just looking at like the plywood portion of my cabinet, not the face frame right now. Let's see, we know we have 18 inches to play with side to side. So I'm just going to measure over 18, right? Because that's where my carpeting starts. So I need to make sure that this terminates here 18 inches from that wall, right? And at the back, now this is, this kind of just depends on what you want to do. I want to give myself at least 1/4 inch of extra space here at the back. I do not want the back of this cabinet to make contact with the wall again, because I don't know what's going to happen if it does. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of buffer room here with 1/4 inch. Okay, so with those guidelines in place, I'm going to start building the walls of my cabinet, which will come in here from that point to that point. We know this is 3/4 of an inch material. And I do want to raise, I think I mentioned this before, I want to raise the height of the tabletop just a little bit, the desktop. So I'm going to make these 29 1/2, and that's going to bring my total up to over 30 inches for my actual desktop, which I think is pretty good. So let's go 29 1/2 up. Okay, so that's one cabinet side. I'm going to copy and paste that. We're just going to make the same one, put that over here so it goes right on that line on that side. It's looking pretty good. Very basic construction here. So I just have a top that's going to go from one spot to the other like this. At a certain point, the thing just kind of builds itself. And then we can copy and paste that down to our bottom. And keep in mind, this is not going to go directly on the floor. There's going to be a face frame piece down here, and we want this to be flush with the top of that face frame. This might make a little bit more sense later, but I'm going to raise this up 3/4 of an inch. So there's going to be just a little bit of a gap under there. But our face frame piece is going to run across here, covering all that up. Right, so I know I want 2 of these, right? One on the left, one on the right, and we're going to keep them exactly the same. So just copy and paste all these elements, and I'm going to bring them over here. And then we're going to make sure that this guy goes right into that same corner spot here, 3/4 of an inch from the wall. All right, so far, so good. So let's start thinking about 2 ways that this cabinet will engage with its space, right? Well, first of all, we know we have the blank area where the carpet is missing, and I'm going to butt right up against that here. I'm also giving myself clearance on both sides so that the cabinet doesn't actually touch the walls, which is what makes this so smart, you know, because if it doesn't touch the walls, we have no interference concerns, and then we just use the face frame to make it look like this thing is perfectly sized, even though we're just a little bit inside of the wall here. So this guy's now 3/4 of an inch from the wall. Let's draw our face frame in here, which is 1.5 inches wide, and we know it's 3/4 of an inch thick. Okay, very nice. That's looking good. We can copy that guy over here. Of course, we have a top piece and one that goes on the bottom. And you see how that little raised bottom here is completely covered up now. And by the way, we are restricted in how we build this cabinet. There are better ways, I think, to build a cabinet with a toe kick and things like that. But the way this was installed and the fact that I don't want to mess with the carpeting any more than I have to, and I don't have much setback to play with, I'm kind of stuck, you know, kind of simulating what they had here before, which puts the face frame all the way on the ground like this, but it'll work. Okay, we'll put the face frame on the right side as well. All right, so I mentioned those 2 contact points. We have one here on the side where the face frame encounters the side wall, and then we have one here at the back where the inside panel winds up meeting the back wall. So how do we resolve those? Well, let's start with the face frame. Now the trick here is we don't know what this wall is actually doing. I did measure the opening, sure, I know the width, but what happens from the bottom to the top? Is it absolutely plumb? You know, is it maybe not flat, so it kind of bows out a little bit? We don't know. So we're going to have to scribe for that. And how much you leave extra on your style here to do that scribing kind of depends on how far out the wall is. Now, I did put a straight edge on my wall, and I know it's not that bad. So I don't think I need a ton of extra material. 1/4 inch is probably going to do it. So here we are looking at like the perfect scenario with a dead flat wall, 1.5 inch style in width, 1.5 inch, and it would be nice if that was what it actually was. The problem is we just don't know. So what I'm going to do, you can kind of see when you have a wall here that has no thickness, you could see the other part kind of poking through. So what we're going to do is click into that, and I'm going to grab that guy. I'm just going to grab that face and pull it 1/4 inch further out. Right, so you can see it pokes through the wall, but we're going to cut some of that away later. I'm just doing this so that when I actually take my measurements and get my cut list, I know that I'm going to have this style 1/4 inch wider than the rest of the material because I need that scribe material. So this is going to be the same on this side. We're going to have one of these on the inside that's going to be a perfect 1.5 inch wide, and then we're going to go a little extra wide on this side. So we can actually, if we want to, just kind of copy and paste, use the same piece, get rid of that guy, and replace it with the wider one that's intended for scribing. And as you can see, it also just kind of punches through the wall a little bit. So that is how we're going to make this magic happen. We're going to be nice and flush with that carpet here. Our cabinet is going to live inside this opening. There's going to be no chance of colliding with the wall, but this face frame, when we do that scribe, is what's going to make it look absolutely perfect. All right, so that's the face frame. Let's look at the cabinet side. All right, so I'm going to keep my 2 cabinets the same just for the sake of simplicity. You certainly could, you know, knowing that this side kind of angles back a little bit, we could make this piece the one that has a little bit of extra length, so it makes the, you know, the run all the way to the wall. But I think it's just easier to make both of these pieces the same so that when I'm cutting these components out of plywood, that they are just identical, right? We just got to compensate by adding a little bit of extra material. Now, while I don't want to contact at all over here, I'm okay making contact on this inside because here's where the person's legs will go. And while it's not absolutely crucial because you can't really see it that well, I do want to sort of scribe along the back of this cabinet so that it does fit up against that wall, nice and flush and clean. So in order to do that, we're going to have to oversize this inside panel here on both of these guys. All right, I'm going to go, if I go 1/4 inch, that just brings me right to the point that is my theoretical wall. But I want to go a little bit further than that to another 1/4 inch. So the total, I'm going to expand that 1/2 inch. Right, and you can see obviously, just like the the style that we did for the face frame, it is going into the wall, but that is accounting for the fact that we're going to cut some of that away. And we'll do the same thing on the other guy. Okay, that's looking good. All right, so in the end, what we have here are 2 cabinets. They're not exactly the same. They are technically mirror images of one another, but in terms of their main dimensions for their components, they're all going to be the same. And we can then construct that in the shop knowing that we have the right dimensions and that on site we'll do everything we need to do to make it look like it was perfectly designed for that space. Now, one other thing that we could figure out while we're here is the distance between these 2 styles, because remember, I want to have a center drawer that goes above the person's legs. So that distance now is kind of fixed. We can just get it directly from our drawing. If we want that drawer to be right in the middle there, well, that's what it's going to be. So that once we construct these 2 cabinets in the shop, we know that this piece will go between them, and that's a fixed distance. And then when we go to do the final installation, we just got to make sure that that all jives. And if we need to trim something, we could trim something, but this will be something that we build a little bit further down the line. For now, though, I can get a representation of it just knowing what's coming. All right, so let's jump ahead a little bit because I got a couple other things to show you, and it's stuff that I don't think you need to see me draw. All right, so just a little fast forward here. You don't necessarily need to see how all this was built and all the decisions behind the design, but I did want to go with a nice frame and panel look for all of the false fronts and drawer fronts and the door. It's also a flush design, so you can see nothing really sticks out other than, we'll have some hardware sticking out later. But I really like the way that there's sort of continuity across the top here with these drawers and then the drawer in the center. I think it just harmonizes really well. So this is essentially what we're going to be building here. But again, I didn't want to go through the whole process of drawing that, but you can see this is our goal. And with all this information in place, we can start the process of building the cabinets and then working our way into the drawers and the door. Oh crap. I was busy on the floor over here. I've got 3 bins of wires, USB wires, HDMI cables, audio cables. Sure you guys can relate, and it's time to purge. So I was taking an opportunity to purge during the show. So anyway, sorry about that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. As you can see, it's a fairly substantial build, and there's a lot to it. And the methods that I use may not be exactly what other people might do. This is just the solutions that I, either researched and saw someone do, thought it was good and incorporated it, or just something I came up with to get myself out of a bind. There are so many different ways to tackle something like this, and I'm sure you guys watching this, you saw immediately there are things you might have done a little bit differently. And I did have a couple of questions come in. I'm happy to repeat them here and answer those. My buddy Wilbur asked about the 3/4 inch gap on the sides. At the back, I allowed for about 1/4 inch, right? I think that's more than enough, unless the wall is like super crazy out. But why 3/4 on the side? That comes down to the fact that we want 1.5 inch face frame when it's all said and done. And 1.5 inch face frame, if you have 3/4 of that given to your cabinet side, to cover the cabinet side, you're left with 3/4. So that's why there's a 3/4 inch gap. It just made sense for me to do it that way. Tommaso asked about adjustable feet. Can't be sure that concrete is flat, right? Well, chances are it isn't, but I don't know that I would go through, for a build like this, especially when there's no toe kick or anything like that, it doesn't really matter. I think as long as the cabinets are mostly level and you shim them at the bottom, if there's any rocking, you could shim that out. You'll see that's exactly what I do, is use shims to stabilize them. That's perfectly fine. You don't really need adjustable feet. I mean, I can't even think, for this design, I can't think of a reason why you would need those. Greg asked about how fine we get with the measurements, and that's an interesting thing, and I think that's where the fine woodworker clashes with the on-site builder.
because I don't think you need to be as fine as we might be in terms of going to the nearest 32nd of an inch or whatever we do in our shop, 64ths, right? Or millimeters for you Canadians out there. For me, a 16th. I go to what my tape measure easily shows me. A 16th is about as granular as I can get. And even then, I think that's probably a little bit too fine. But ultimately, most of what we're doing with these measurements, as you saw with the SketchUp portion, is we are getting the opening roughly laid out, and everything that comes down to the fine work is all being done based on the scribes. We have gaps of like a 3/4 inch gap on this side. We'll have a 1/4 inch space at the back. You are overshooting the goal so that you could trim it back based on what is there in, what you actually are confronted with. So it's not quite the same thing as we're not exactly measuring something and fitting it into a space perfectly by measuring it at the shop, cutting it, and then dropping it in. It's not what we're doing. So those measurements, even going to a 16th, is probably overkill, but it does make things a little bit more predictable when I get it back on site. So, so I'm happy to answer any more questions that you guys might have here. What wheels do I have? You don't want to get me started on the bike talk. People get mad at me. So the wheels I have, these are, they're not actually nothing too great. These are what came with my checkpoint. They're Paradigms, but they have a really good set of gravel tires on them that I really like. So I got to take those off and get them on my actual bike that I'm riding. Those are, when I had a Domani, those were my extra wheel set. On this side, I've got my new Trek Madone. I'm going to take that out on Saturday, and I'm going to be at the back of the pack where I belong with my sweet fancy bike. So let's see. I got a little bit off track. You get me talking about bikes, and I get all flustered. This course launches Friday. It is on pre-order right now. So if you go to the website and you place an order, you're going to have a drop-down box. It's going to have 3 choices. One is going to be a sample pack of backside sandpaper. I think there's about 6 pieces in here of my mom's choosing, plus some stickers. You have another option to pick a general compass scribe. And this is something that will really, this is a basic one, and this is all you need. This is going to come in really handy for doing projects like built-ins. Those are for our U.S. customers only. If you are in the U.S. or international, your option would be the 50% off discount. That is, again, also open to U.S. customers. But you get a 50% off coupon code for any guild course that you want to use it on. Not this one. You have to use it on another one. We'll give you that code in a couple days now. And in fact, I believe Mom has already started to send some of the bonus items out. I think the first set of the general compasses went out today. So that should be arriving very, very soon. So this is at twwguild.com. If you go to the courses area, it's the latest course to be added there. On Friday, when I wake up Friday morning, I publish all the videos, and all 16 videos will be there for you to watch. Everything is, of course, in full HD. You could watch it on the website. You could also, what makes the Guild fairly unique in the world of online presentations like this is we let you download the videos. I don't know that we're going to do that forever, but we have. It's kind of traditional for us to do that, and we like you guys to be able to download these things because, things happen, and if the site ever goes away, I want you to have access to these files. So you can download all the episodes to your hard drive, keep them, but you still retain access. We don't charge you anything to come back to the site a year from now, 5 years from now to access your courses. Once you buy a course, it's yours. The other thing is, if you're not familiar with the Guild is amazing. If I toot my own horn a little bit here, I think it's the best place to learn woodworking online. And it isn't just about me. It's about the amazing instructors that we have in the Guild, names that you have probably heard of, teaching their little hearts out and doing such a good job and conveying the unique skill set that they have. And they're all people who are also instructors. So they're experienced with conveying these concepts. And it's a great place to learn woodworking. The chat room, I know, is full of Guild members who will explain what makes the Guild so great. But extra benefits and things like that come along with the Guild membership, access to our communities, discounts that we have available. We have Guild meetings periodically. I've been doing my Grain of Truth videos. And after we're done here, cool thing that we're going to do is every Wednesday are Wednesday night watch-alongs where just as a community, we get together and we watch a couple of woodworking videos. Typically, our buddy Greg Batt is the one that makes those choices, or Nicole will throw some videos in there. And it's a whole lot of fun, and it's just great camaraderie to hang out with some like-minded people and ignore some of the craziness in the world today and just focus on some good, wholesome woodworking. So we're going to be doing that. That is a guild member benefit, but it is free to everybody today. Somebody put the link. I'm sure I haven't watched the chat this whole time, and I'm sure the link has been posted already in the chat, but it's open to everybody. Come hang out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let me see if there's anything else that I had written down that I needed to say. I don't think so. I'll just reiterate, this is a 16 video course for a total of almost 8 hours of instruction. And you can see with that little sample video, my teaching style is pretty much what it's always been. You know, it's methodical. It's not YouTube friendly. It is definitely not. These kinds of videos are meant to breathe. They're meant to give you time to think, to absorb the information and digest it, and then move on to the next one. It's a journey, and we're happy with the way that these courses come out, because it's a rarity these days. Even my own stuff that I have to make for YouTube is so chopped down and so reduced in information just to make it palatable for that audience. And it's not my favorite thing. So I'm so thankful that we have the guild and we have folks who appreciate that kind of content, because I really believe in it. It looks like a made up link. Which one? The sync tube? No, like there's this company. I don't know, where are they? Denmark or something like that. They basically will create a chat room, and then we pick a playlist, and the folks who are in this chat room, the video just starts playing, and we're just pulling videos from YouTube. And whoever makes the video on YouTube is getting the view. So, they are kind of, I don't know if they get all the views, but they're at least getting the view. And then we just kind of hang out and chat. It's super chill and a lot of fun. Happens every Wednesday. Now, that said, I don't know how long that website's going to be around. When it goes away, what are we going to do? We got to have a plan B, guys. TWW team, let's have a plan B, because I don't know what it would be. Let's see. I do have a question here. JS Wood Creations. The face frames are wider against the wall for scribing, but the other long side are also wider than the ply. Yes. So the inside, I see what you're saying. So where the knees go on the inside of this thing, there is a 3/4 inch overhang of the face frame. That's not a problem for me. And I mean, it is what it is. It looks perfectly fine now that it's finished. But I did that because I wanted to make sure we continue to have flush interior where the face frame is flush to the inside of the cabinet. And I wanted that uniform on both sides. So you get a 3/4 inch overhang. The most important thing is that visually from the front, you see even face frames. I think that uniformity matters more. Yes. Yes, indeed. That is a Trek Madoon. Right there. Hanging out, keeping me company. You know where all bikes should be stored? In an office. That's what I think. I like my bikes too much to keep them in the garage. Hey, Bear F6767. Just made my order. Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys don't even understand. Maybe you do understand how important your purchase is to us. I'm going to go all PBS on you guys right now. The changing landscape and how difficult it's become to make something of what we post on YouTube in terms of monetization, and to turn it into something profitable to keep our very, very small family-run business going without selling our souls. That's the big challenge. Like, I know how to make more money with this business. I know exactly what we need to do. I don't want to do it. I don't like what my work would become. It would be awful for me. So everything that we do is always with, pulling back. We're always pulling back to not go down a path we don't want to go. And that's to our detriment, because we don't play those games. We don't do those things. We let in as much as we can stomach, and then we stop. And the problem is we can only get so far doing that. The thing that allows us to do that, and the thing that allows us to continue making our free content, still, we like to think a cut above in terms of the quality level and just giving you good information and not beating you over the head with ads constantly. YouTube will do that anyway, but that's not us that's doing it. The fact that we have the guild is something that makes all that possible. When you guys purchase a course, it really means a lot. And not just to me. This one happens to be my course, but typically in the guild, we have guest instructors. So when you purchase a course forever, as long as that course is in the guild, that money gets split between us and the instructor. So you're not only helping out my business and my family, you're helping out that instructor's business and their family. That's how we operate here. And it's you guys making these purchases that makes all of this possible. And it's been just in the last, I would say last 10 years or so, painfully obvious how hard it's going to be for us going forward, without something like the guild to bolster what we do and support what we do. It would just be so difficult because then we would have to become a company we don't want to be. And I'd rather not do that. I'd rather just go back to being a custom furniture maker, being quiet, minding my own business, and just building stuff. Like if that was my alternative. So truly, thank you so much for the support when you guys buy these courses. It means a lot. Oh, Bear's a Firehouse founder too. Dude, thank you so much. You got to stop by the shop and see your name on the wall. Send us an email or something. I could take a picture of it if you haven't seen your name. We took everybody who was a Firehouse founder, put their names on those little walnut discs, the walnut cookies we cut from the backyard at the shop. And Nicole got them all set up and lasered, and they look fantastic. So super, super cool stuff. Tommy Evans, I try it. It hangs up every 10 seconds. I sync up the actual YouTube video, which is hit and miss syncing. Are we talking about this presentation or SyncTube? I guess he's talking about this. Sync issues, I don't know. There's not much I could do to troubleshoot this stuff these days, sadly. Okay. So, let's see. I think that's all I've got. I mean, if you guys don't have any questions or anything, Troy's going to be in St. Louis this weekend. Too bad I don't have a lot of extra time to explore the area. Yeah, if you do have time and you want to stop by the shop, let me know. We are not, we're like what, Nicole, like 50 minutes from St. Louis? Something like that. Close to an hour. It's not too bad. So, with all that, I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with me tonight. Oh, you mean SyncTube? Yeah, that's a whole... So if it doesn't work, it's like you try a different browser, refresh it. There's only so many things we can do with that. I'm just thankful it works most of the time. Again, after this, we're going to do the Wednesday night watch party. There will be a link in the chat that you could follow for that. That's open to everybody. But if you want to do that again in the future, you got to become a guild member. How do you become a guild member? You purchase a course. You either purchase a course or you try Guild Stream. And Guild Stream is a way that you get a couple of... you get access to 2 courses a month on a rotating calendar. We pick those courses, and you have all the benefits of guild membership while you have an active subscription. So it's a lower cost way to get in the door, to try things out, and or the alternative is to buy a course, and then you're pretty much a guild member for life. So there's that. Alrighty, well, thank you so much, folks, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you purchase a course, hang tight. We'll get you that coupon code or your bonuses ASAP as soon as we are able to. And hey, just a quick note on the True Grip clamp pads. We know a lot of people are being very patient and waiting. They have been shipped from the manufacturer, and we are just waiting for news. We've got a tracking number that we are banging on every day, hoping to see something show up sooner than later. But as soon as those come in, we will be on top of that and getting those shipments out. So just since we're talking about shipping stuff, I thought I would mention it. Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and safe woodworking, happy woodworking. You guys hear Dougie snoring? Attaboy. All right, have a great night, everybody. See you later.